I noticed that about you. I picked up on your frequency, and I thought, wow, man, she's really tuned in. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. How's it going,
Hi,
everybody?
everyone.
There's nobody here yet. So, but the people
Soon,
from the
soon. I'm
replay,
getting,
yeah, the people from the
yeah.
replay are on, but or will be on. Okay, so let me play the intro and give them time to come in. Your mic is live, just so you know, during the song. So anything you say
Okay,
can and will be held against you. Just so you know that. We got another
okay,
person in
no
the
problem.
Zoom room. We got Mary Moreno. All right, man. We're gonna have a pachanga. Man, I've been craving Mexican food. I found this. I'm in Fort Smith, Arkansas. You know, you would think there's no Mexicans up here, but there are. There Mexicans are everywhere. You know, and and so I went to this place the other day. I said, "Do you have any menudo?" And he says, "No, no, no, we have no menudo." I was like, "Oh man, do you know where to get some?" So he told me about this little place. It's probably as big as this room. So I'm going to go check it out. All right, let me play the intro. Let people have time to come in. First show of the week. I'm excited, and we'll talk about it in a minute. How's it going, everybody? We got Delia Flores in the house today. I'm real excited about it. Delia is a beautiful, beloved sister. She's always in the Zoom room, like all the time, on every show, pretty much. And we got to meet her 2 Sundays ago, yesterday, when we did that open mic, spoken word open mic. She came on and she did a little something like she's gonna do today. And so anyway, so she's Delia from outer space, and she's such a beautiful, beloved sister. She really has propped me up a few times. I don't know if you know that, but you know, it's not always easy getting on here. Morgan looks at me sometimes, and she just is like, I don't know how you do it. You know, you can get right out of bed. 2 minutes later, you're on, and but there are times when, you know, I'm not fully there and you're there to engage with before the show. So it means a lot. So I just want to say thank you for that. And thank you for coming on.
Oh, of course, of course. So this is one of those biggest things that I think even me and you have had talks in our etheric selves in those aspects and asking, when are you coming? When are you coming? But yeah, I mean, I've even, where can I begin? Where can I begin?
Yeah. Where can you
I
begin?
mean,
I mean,
I,
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. You
well,
can.
what can I say? I born with a lot of knowledge. You kind of have to step back a little, and we always somewhat. It's not when did you wake up. It's more of when did you forget,
Yeah. True.
and when did we give our power away. And
Yeah.
it all begins in childhood, and then you get towards speed forward, high school. You're trying to do the pressures of everybody, life, family, drama, and then finding love, things like that. I mean, I got married right out of high school,
Yeah.
and I was married for 11 years, and things were not aligning anymore. That I said, I can't do this anymore. And I remember being 28, my 28th birthday was one of the worst experiences ever, saying, I need help. I need out. I was ready to say, come on, I need to tap out, but I know that I have a lot of work to do here. And I asked, you got to give me something. so I can exit with best way of, with my peace, with my sanity, and above all things, with my safety.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it happened. And doing through all that afterwards, it was more of a reawakening once again, stepping into my power and really doing shadow work.
Really?
I was doing shadow work without knowing what shadow work was.
Back in the late 20s?
No, that was I believe 2013, 2014, but it really was 2012. A lot of shifts started happening in that, and it started getting worse for me. That I really just stepped away by 2013, and by 2014 I started reconstructing my life from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah.
I moved back to my parents and, well, my mom, and do all that. Still attached with the title of being married, and I had to file for divorce myself, and
Yeah.
I didn't speak to him, so I told him through somebody else, don't answer, we don't have kids, we don't have any debts between us, don't answer, let it go through quick. And the easiest way to just exit and clean out, but
Yeah.
to really step
Clean out the
into
closet. Clean out the closet.
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
one of the things I notice about you, okay, so we all, because there's a bunch of stuff you just hit on, I want to go back to, but because obviously we do this program first and foremost so that we can assist brothers and sisters, including me, including whoever comes on, with the experiences that we've had, because so many people are going through it, and we know it's not linear. And so sometimes something will happen for somebody 5 years into it or 5 days into it. So, but one of the things I noticed, and you made reference to it, and I picked up on it too, when some of the comments you make, because you make a lot of comments in the Zoom room, and I don't always read a lot of comments. And you've got a real, your higher sensitivity, your higher senses are full blown. I mean, like you're seeing the field, you're seeing what's happening, I'm sure in your own life, but also you seem to have, you're tapped into the collective. And that's one of the things I noticed about you. And so by observing your field, you just, so how did that all come about? You said that, like a lot of people have come on the show, they said, I was awake when I came in, I went to sleep, and I reawakened, just like you said, when did you get your memory back? So like, what does your world consist of? Because I know you listen to this program, you're working when you're doing it, if I'm not mistaken, some of the time, or you're running. But I know a lot of times you are working, because I remember you made a comment and you said, I listen to you while I'm working and whatever. But so what's your field look like? What's your world look like? Are you dealing with one universal voice? Do you have certain essences that you kind of go through? Is there any Kudanyeta stuff going on?
Oh, that's funny that you mentioned that. My training began actually with my ex-husband. His family thought I was doing something to him, so they took him to a curandera and trying to pull out. I met her. I mean, we had dealings. She was like my teacher. She was my training essence overall. So then they go and they do all these things, and they pull out, and she's like, she's actually not hurting him. She's actually protecting him from himself.
Yeah.
And this goes back during high school, when I start doing things automatically. Higher self and the strong energy just pulls in. I did something for him to protect him from himself. And this was when I was 16.
Wow.
And then we've been married. And then she's like, okay, well, it seems to be like an ex-girlfriend. That was one of my friends in the past. And then he's like, I think you should bring her in. So she met me, and they had to deal with that. And then afterwards, she healed me for free. And then energy exchanges, I became her helper for a bit. I mean, we were so close to the point that we actually lived together.
Wow.
And
the Curandera?
Yeah. I mean, she was a teacher. She really was a teacher. And she taught me a lot of stuff. And what she realized is that I'm a healer.
Yeah.
And she's like, you can do this. You can do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
She does physically bringing stuff up So if somebody used a voodoo doll and put pins
Yeah.
in the body, the pins would come out. So we were able to take that out, and I was the one that always took out. So we saw a lot of stuff, a lot of animals, a lot of things, and we will place them in a holy jar. And all of this was done through prayer and healing and everything else, calling in the truth of God and of the Mother Essence and her person that came through to be the channel of healing, which was her prior teacher, who was a
Wow.
nun. So she had massive, massive, amazing gifts. The only thing that happened in the end towards our friendship is because she's addicted to gambling, bingo.
Yeah. Bingo.
So yeah,
Bingo.
bingo.
Hey, yeah, in the Latino community,
Yeah, you know where the
bingo's
money is. Go to
bingo's a big
bingo.
deal, man. And
So
because
she kind of,
yeah.
yeah, she figured too is when my energy's high, she would
Mm,
take me along because she's like,
yeah.
oh, you got some luck. So she started using me in that
Yeah.
way. I mean, I win one time and I won almost
Powerful.
$3,000. Yeah,
Wow. We need to
and
go
this
play.
was
We
the
need to go play
casinos.
some bingo, man.
Yeah, the casinos and everything else. And then for me, it was always balance of energy exchange.
Well,
And we were,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, we were only allowed with energy because it does take a lot to do 3 healings a day, mostly. It does take a lot on the person that does the praying, the channeling, and as well as
Yeah.
the healing.
Yeah.
And then our job, once we were done, it's like, okay, you get rid of it.
Yeah.
You find a way to get rid of it, or you have the choice. We have to always give them the choice. If you want to return it, you have to go with karma and balance.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, oh, certain things I don't play with because that taught me, and I saw the darker side of humanity. And
Yeah.
I don't normally tell that to people because it's like I've always ran with the paranormal with my family.
Yeah. Well,
So
and just so people know, curandera is a Spanish term for that loose word witch, but it doesn't necessarily mean dark magic, white magic. I mean, I remember years ago in the 80s, I was running like 4 offices in South Texas, and one of them was on the Mexican border, and the company had told me do not hire any women, but I did anyway. So I hired this woman, and she ran the office on the Mexican border in Harlingen, Texas. And she used to get that white powder with the chicken feet. So because we were home builders, so we had to sell, and we had a model park with 3 or 4 different houses for people to look at. So she would get out there and she would put that, whatever that powder is, I still don't know what it is to this day. She'd put that powder out there with the chicken feet and do this white magic. And it was a very, a very, I don't want to say poor area, but it wasn't exactly, there wasn't a lot of money down there, but hey, we built a lot of houses. So I was a believer. And my grandfather, his sister, my great aunt, she was a very well-known curandera in South Texas, and politicians and people would come from all over to come see her, So yeah, it's not a bad word, is I guess what I'm saying. But you seem to have, do you have some type of lineage in your family that you can point to, that the women are
well,
passing it down?
that's the thing. I'm not connected to my other side of my family. We came here really little. But I think it's mostly my lineage that I chose to come into, as well as the knowledge I know from the past, and as well as my connections to the divine and their teachings. I'm more of an energy healer. I move around a lot of energy. I do collective work when I'm called. A lot of great work.
So are
If
you
necessary.
are you a practitioner? Do you work one-on-one with people typically?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm starting to do that. I started a couple of times and then it kind of stopped because,
so this is interesting too. I don't think I've ever asked anybody this, because there has been a lot of women, especially women, that have come on here that do energy work for the collective, and some people might call it grid work or whatever the case is. How did you figure out you were supposed to do that? Did you start seeing the collective field and the stuff that was going on and that needed to be brought into alignment, or how did you get that message to know to do those things?
Well, I guess it would happen towards where I was doing my inner shadow work and everything else. I became really sensitive to the earth energy without realizing the Schumann resonance and the solar energetic frequency. I would feel basically the waves of energy come forth, and just realizing intuitively that there is needing to be anchoring. And then, of course, connecting to other people. So my best friend I found through a group of empowerment for women,
Mm.
and we found a lot of people and that connected to really fast, as well as somebody that spoke to angels. So she kind of brought that into my field. I'm a big believer, but it brought that back into my field, that I started doing more practice and having that communion with both my angels, my soul tribe, and all my aid. And of course, when we level up a little higher, new ones come in, are presented to us
Wow.
in order for us to move forward into our expansion.
Now, are you working, when you describe what you just described, are you talking about with yourself? Or are you doing this with your friend and other friends as a group, or both?
I think sometimes I do both. We feel the need, or I do collective, or I post something, and then some people do something along the lines, different timings, and of course, the illusion of time it varies overall throughout the entire universe. But I do also a one-on-one. I also have been doing sessions. I had someone from, I guess, somewhere in the south. I called them, and it was through one of my soul brothers that he's like, she needs some assistance, and I think you're the perfect person. So if just talking to him a little bit, I was able to tap into a lot of stuff, and I do tap into other people's energy, just connecting, meeting, or even sometimes just seeing a photo or having somebody talk. I'm able to tap into that energy. And of course, as I always say, please ask for permission, and then I'll move forward. I mean, I am a Reiki practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
but since naturally I'm an energetic healer, I do my own thing in my own modalities and what comes through. So if it's mother energy, the earth, a lot of different aspects that come through. Fairies, depending on who I'm working with, have a lot of fairy energy. It'll come through.
Yeah. A lot of fairy energy. Now, and so, like, I know Morgan, observing Morgan for 5 years, and some of her friends too, that, she anchors. I've watched her anchor, you know, um, but I don't know how it works for everyone else. What's it like when you see something that's happening? What does that mean to you? What do you do to anchor it?
Well, it just depends on what it is. Like right now, there's massive shifts happening. It's one thing on top of another on top of another.
No
And
shit.
learning to big time. So it's learning to pull away. Learning to pull away. This is one thing that I've always asked people, it's like, well, how do you dream? And a lot of people dream in the first person. I don't dream in the first person. I dream in the third person.
So you're
So
observing yourself.
yeah,
Okay.
so that's one of the things that I'm able to do is with everything else, I'm able to pull away,
Hmm.
see the bigger picture and the aspects, and then gain from that and tap into the wisdom of that, and then go from there and anchoring that energy. If it's meditation, movement, I most of the time, like I've made comments that um, when I'm listening to the show, most of the time I do go for a run. I'm not a runner. I am not a runner at all.
But
I'll
you go,
go
but
hit
you
the
run. You're not a
yeah.
runner, but you run.
I've been running because the gyms have been closed, and in order for me to do energy work, I have to physically be doing something. That's
I
just how I
get it.
exert energy. And
Hmm.
then a lot of the times after when I'm done, I would balance it out with going to the sauna. And going to the sauna, that just instant connection, since I've been moving energy the entire time. And I've had issues, well, not issues, just certain things just come up while I'm working out.
Hmm.
So as of late, I've been asked to, I need to move. I need to move in order to anchor some energy. So I'm not a runner, but I've been running for 5, sometimes 6 miles. One time when I did that energy healing long distance, I ended up doing 8 miles, and I
And
have
you're
no
not a
idea
runner.
how I did it.
And
And
you're
I'm
not a
not a
runner.
runner.
Man, I couldn't run 8/10 of a mile.
No, and I'm really slow. Especially, I got hit by a car.
Mm.
So that was also divine intervention. The night before, I got the message of Reiki your shoes. This is before I was attuned to Reiki.
Mm.
But I understood what Reiki was. So I went ahead and did that to my shoes. So later in that day, I got hit by a car on the green light walking a block away from my house.
Wow.
Yeah, and I told my group where I was at, it's almost like zoology, but just women for empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, and I reached out to the one I call the Angel Whisperer. She basically said it would have been worse. The way that I got hit, I mean, I busted that bumper and my face got hit. Nothing happened to my face.
Wow.
Only my foot. So I know that that's when a divine intervention comes in, and of course I have a lot of work to do, but more of the connection to connecting to spirit and working with the angels.
So it sounds to me like you're pretty much tuned in 24/7.
Yes,
So
yes, most of the time.
you're always about the work, lack of a better word, but you're always about the mission.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, that, which is funny. Yes, yesterday I had a session with somebody, just trying to tap into where I'm doing and everything else, and they did mention about my work and that I'm doing good. I'm gonna be having more people come, and I didn't say anything about being on here or anything else. And I know in the expansion, wherever I go, I always talk energy. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if they understand it or not, but there's always common basis of law of attraction. So in order to kind of plant the seed for them to realize, hey, you're gonna really go negative, or you're gonna tune that tune and dial up a little higher. So if they get it, they understand it, then I'll expand. If I see that they're understanding a little more, then I'll expand further. It's not like I can douse them out with like a bunch of things and
Right.
go from everything else that's happening.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if someone's really open, I can totally go full on galactic and be very happy to do so.
Galactic. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you brought something up that we all know this year's been massive, and this June was massive. June was crazy, and now we're in this 6 days into July, and it's been an absolute scattered but contained, wild but smooth. It's just been all this stuff the last 3 or 4 days. Everybody knows it was into the eclipse, this period of 3 eclipses and a full moon and 9 planets aligning and all this other stuff. But one of the things that seems to be happening is there's, like you're talking about, the way you're interacting with people as an example. And if they're open to their own shadow or their own pattern that's playing or loop that's playing. And so as a result, I guess the energy practitioner role, or whatever you want to call it, seems to have changed a little bit, because we've talked about it on the show, at the end of last year, that whole yogi guru thing kind of went away. There was more of a equal energy exchange, a self-empowerment type of thing. A lot of the practitioners have talked about. What do you do when somebody's stuck in a loop, especially if they're dear to you, they're close to you, or they come across you, in your work? What do you do? How do you work with that? And how much patience and tolerance do you have for it? Because the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm finding that I cannot listen to the old stories anymore. Like I can't listen to that loop playing over and over like a broken record. I'm not a practitioner. I do reach out to people now and then when I'm moved to, but I really find that, I can't be in that environment. I can't listen to the bullshit. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because I have compassion for it, but at the same time, I'm not comfortable in that space. Do you run into that?
Yeah, I mean, even with my own family, I one of the reasons I ended up moving to the East Bay is because I needed to pull away from all of that. There's a lot of karmic stuff happening between them, and I decided not to be a part of that. When you pull away and you're doing your own thing for yourself, for your safety, and for your own self-love, I realized too, just recently, my mom, with everything that's happening, she's like, well, there's obviously something else much bigger what's going on. And this is a person who likes to play an old record. I love my mom dearly and everything else, but she finally realized herself, I have to stop doing that. Yeah. So the greater part of everything else. And I was like, okay, I'll engage now. You finally realize something. I'm not going to be talking myself to death. It's like, you need to make a change. You need to make a change. Yeah. Because in the end, it's not my lesson. It's their lesson. Okay. And learning how to detach from that. Yeah. If it's someone near to me, it's like me and my roommate, we talk and expand for that and be like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. I didn't think about that way. And if they're open, we can have that openness and have like, oh, okay, so maybe I'll make a change. But when it's something that it's family related, sometimes it's harder than when it's close friends and even people you meet, because you already have that detachment and you're like, okay, well, this is what's going on. And you see them go back into the same loop. It's like, okay, I can only give you the tools, can only give you the advice, but it's up to you in the end.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly. Yeah. And so it's like, we're here to serve, but we've come out of this. And again, I'm not a practitioner, but I guess, I've done some of that over the 8 or 9 years. So you want to help, but something's happened over the last few months. And that is that it's like that energy sucks the energy out of you. And like you said, I'll just put it another way. With everything going on, I need every bit of my wherewithal to handle it, because I asked you a minute ago, or it sounds like you're 24/7 on the mission. I guess now that I think about it, in my own case, it's like, I don't even have a choice. Like, there's not a moment that goes by, or an incident, or a symbol that appears before me, or a person that comes across me that isn't putting me where I need to be, or at least giving me the opportunity to utilize that situation or event or person or whatever. But it's like, I can't, it's like somebody's putting their fingernails on a chalkboard, and I can only hear it for so long. And you're right. I mean, I guess in a way, is it just when we pull back and retain, and and therefore are able to expand our energy, that's really the best thing we can do for that person? I mean, with your mom, did you have to tell your mom, hey, you need to make this change, or did it happen through the etherics in your own way?
Well, I've always told her. She's a very, very negative person, very, really deeply. So something happens, she's like, oh, I'm gonna die now, what are you guys gonna do? It's always that thing. It's like the Mexican mentality.
A Latino thing. I think that's a Latino
yeah, exactly.
The rosary beads and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, basically, not to, everybody's different, but growing up that way, I became the 100% version of the opposite of her.
Yeah.
I'd rather be unknowingly positive than to be negative. But, we all have to do the balance of things. We go through our own stuff, and we have to go through our own shadow phases where we have to pull back, got to deal with it, right the wave, and then reemerge again with whatever lesson and healing that we had to do.
Yeah. What is that amazing? I never noticed jewelry. Morgan always say, hey, did you see that? I'm like, no. But what is that ring you're wearing? That thing is like jumping.
Labradorite. It's my favorite stone.
Yeah. That's labradorite. Yeah, I have a labradorite thing over here. Yeah. A wand. That's pretty cool. Yeah, very cool. So you mentioned galactic a minute ago. You say you can go full-blown galactic. What does that mean?
Well, what can I begin? I initially had a beginning. Well, I guess it starts with my dad. My dad, he's into the Bermuda Triangle. He travels everywhere. He's seen a lot of spaceships.
Really?
He can talk all his That's the only thing me and him ever bonded on. Um, so when I was a child, I think about 6, 7, I had my first encounter, and I
Really?
was taken.
You were?
You know, when you say taken, it's not like abduction, full blown. You've missed like time. It's more of like your soul merged. They pick you up and they check you and everything else what they need to do. So my connection and everything else that I had with the first people that for contact was the Palladians.
Now,
And
do you have like recall of it happened specifically? Like you left and
oh yeah, I mean it was traumatic to me in the end, because of course when you start to realize, when you do some research and you start clicking things, certain aspects of what they call the veil kind of fall away, and
uh-huh.
that emergence of the knowledge is like, oh, that really happened. So eventually, it ended up happening was that they brought a message of love and divine unity for
Mm,
the entire world,
mm,
and that's part of what I'm doing and what's part of what I'm here for. So one thing that happened within that, of course, is they have the AI grays, right? Kind of creepy.
who
The
had the
whole,
Pleiadians? The Pleiadians?
yeah, they all have research people on their vessels,
Okay, so
and
they're using the organic AI, uh,
yeah.
the Greys.
So they normally track families, and this is why I say it begins with my dad. They came to overall look what's going on, check me, and I don't know what happened, but in between the middle of it, I was woke up and I was already mid running and going to my mom, telling them they're here, they're here, they're here. Don't let them take me. So it was very traumatic. This is one of the reasons why I was able to remember. But most of the time that has happened to me, it's mostly what I call soul travel. So even though you might be asleep here,
Hmm.
you really are somewhere else dimensionally, and
Yeah,
you're going through the experience.
yeah.
So they were one of the first ones, and then of course afterwards dealing with a lot of the ascended masters, and then afterwards the number ones that I deal with currently right now have been the Arcturians, and I had dealings with the Solar's Ray. It's kind of like gray aliens, but they're from Alpha Centauri, that
Alpha
are
Centauri, man. No
more.
wonder we're connected. Go
But
ahead.
that's one of the first constellations that came through for me, and sometimes I post pictures of constellations where I feel that in my dream I know, so I search, or there's a name that pops out and there's a connection there
Yeah.
from the etheric work that I have to do.
Man, you're blowing through this stuff and it's like I can't even hardly keep up. I mean, I can, but like you're talking about some things that I don't think it's really been talked about on this show in 2000 episodes. I mean, you're just the statement that you made about, okay, well, there's the Pleiadian ship and everybody has the Greys on there doing the research and stuff. I mean, like I've seen that like like on a YouTube video but I'm sitting here talking to Delia from outer space, and you actually are from outer space, aren't you?
Very, very galactic, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I can show my alien more, I'll be happy. Then show the controlled version of human
Yeah.
aspect.
What does that mean? Show your alien.
Um, Basically, just be full blown galactic and don't have any filter. When you're with other people, you have to be like, oh, pull back, don't say that,
Okay. Now
or
we're
have
getting
that
somewhere.
control within.
Now we're getting somewhere. So, because I can't relate to what you're saying. I know other people have had these experiences. I've had some experiences, but I can't say I've had the same type of experience. But when it comes to being galactic, okay, at first blush you would think, oh, that means like you know the supernatural stuff and this and that. But I think what I'm picking up from you, and I'm maybe understanding or aligning with something within myself, is I noticed that if I had to term a certain way that I feels very natural to me my whole life, and if I term that galactic, I would describe the field of my energy being one that triggers people a lot, that isn't mean or anything, doesn't have a lot of emotional swings, doesn't get like down, down, down if somebody passes or too excited, on the other end of the spectrum. Is that galactic characteristic? Is that how your galactic is?
Yeah, well, there's also having to do with your energy. When people don't know your energy, there is a little bit of like, ooh, what's that? So my roommate says that when I do work or my energy feels a lot cooler. So a lot of people don't realize it. So let's say how a spaceship can have a mirage kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You could see it. I mean, you feel that it's there. It's like cloaking,
Yeah.
but there's something there. It's that energy that people don't realize. So sometimes they're afraid of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not used to something like that. But I've learned to embody it and just work through it because there's definitely a lot of aspects. I mean, as a child, I remember having a different life elsewhere,
Wow.
which is the epitome of like a starseed. You sometimes realize like this is
Like you're
not
not
the
from
current
here.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So have you, there's a couple things I want to make sure I don't forget, but have you, uh, I mean, have you gotten through all of your connections all these years? Have you gotten some type of, on a personal level, some type of explanation as to what we're doing here, why we're here, and all that stuff?
Well, I think that it has to do with when you say mission. Eventually, we all have a mission, the choice that we came here.
Mm.
The same thing when we came through and birthed through that portal mother energy connection, the DNA has to do with helping the genetics of the family, as well as taking some of that karma. And when you're connected to the other aspects of yourself and you start realizing, oh, I do have a mission that is greater for humanity. And one of the ones that I've always brought is besides amplifying the energy of
Mm.
unity. So
Mm.
whenever there is discord, even now, I don't go in this or that. It's just more neutrality because reality is
Yeah.
I've if someone's going to fight with me about being flat earth and whatever theories, I always end it with we're co-creators in your world. It can happen in my
Yeah.
world. It's not that way. So let's
Yeah.
respect and move on. So when you find the connection and you're brought with a lot of different things and teachings. So I've connected with Toth has been one of the biggest ones that really more put through a lot of knowledge. And even through meditation, have been pulled back to prior lives where I was here on earth, but not as human. That I was part with the Syrians, so I was part with Hathors, and
So what
it
were
was
you
that
part? Were you
connect.
part of a? Were you part of an energy complex, like a spirit guide complex, or were you in physical?
It wasn't physical. This is before they decided to part ways.
Mm-hmm.
Well, dimensionally shift their energy because they were seeing. I mean, humanity from time to time and time. They're giving so much, and they when they're giving so much, they go back to the same patterns of power and abuse, and it has to do with that programming that it's like, oh, okay, you're not ready for that, so we're going to pull away,
Ah, I
and
see.
some of that energy
Okay.
gets hidden again.
Yeah. So, like for instance, like this, I don't know, it was about a week ago or 10 days ago. It was like 2 days went by because I've gotten a lot of history, over the years, like Galactic War history, Orion Wars, just different stuff, and the Earth history. So I was basically part of what I was being shown was how at the different phases of or the different civilizations that the galactics would come down, live with the civilization, teach them things, and then they would leave. So it was almost like, okay, now you got to do this on your own kind of thing. But what
Mm-hmm.
you're saying is that at the same time, they get, it's like TMI, too much information, and then they start to goes to their head, and then they have to pull away because, like you said, we weren't ready for it. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, look what happened to Atlantis. Of course, Atlantis was also built with a lot of Lumerian, a lot of other hybridized, also families and everything else. What they're doing, and eventually got to the point that their power and the abuse of what was going on had to be taken away and wiped out. Whoever ended up going underground, if
Mm-hmm.
that are the survivors of the many different
Yeah.
races underneath in Argatha,
Yeah.
inner world. There's a lot of different things, and we're always given that chance. It's like, okay, you're gonna go, you're gonna leave, what's going on? And we can only say, I guess it would be the Mayans.
Yeah.
Were this is like what happened to that civilization? I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, they're the ones that advanced very so high in astronomy, and they didn't have anything with flying objects. Obviously, there's galactic intervention in that to say, well, they're prospered enough. The other people are fighting and killing themselves. Let them do that. We're going to take this group and we're
Yeah.
going to go and move them up and ascend them further out
Yeah.
because they are stimulating and eventually will be the future of what we are
Far
here.
out. Far out, man. This is. Have you watched Matthias Stefano on Gaia?
I think my roommate has have Gaia TV.
Yeah.
But a lot of the stuff that he did talk about, I kind of already knew. So I was like, oh, I'll wait for the next season.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah. Now the next season or the second season's now. I've only I just discovered him 3 or 4 weeks ago. But that's what he did for me. Like when I listened to him, it's not like listening to you actually right now. So it was like I got little bits and pieces of things, and I don't spend a lot of time like going deep with it. I just go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. It's more of a feeling or an intuit kind of thing. But when I listened to him, it connected a lot of dots for me. You know how like a lot of times you'll get something and then somebody will write something and it validates what you got, and you're not crazy, that kind of thing. But listening to you seem to have a pretty good grasp of a lot of the stuff that he's talking about, which is interesting.
Yeah, I haven't watched them. My roommate mentioned, but about it, I do see bits and clips of the ads from Gaia TV. The only ones that I do watch are mostly the multidimensional. Was that the interviews? So they have Bashar, Michelle Sheldon, that's on there in Gaia.
Yeah, I've not
had her
watched
on
it.
your show.
That's the first time I've who?
You had her on your show, Michelle, Michaela.
Oh,
sorry.
Michaela.
She's actually, yeah, she's actually on Gaia too.
I didn't know that. I had no idea. How cool is that? She's a very cool lady. But so like what about now? Like with everything because you can listen to Franco, you can listen to Jason Estes, you can listen to Lisa Brown, you can listen to Sandra Walter, who I love. I mean, she's to me is about as neutral as you can get. But in your own field of knowledge and understanding, where do you think we're at and what's going on, and anything you can add to that as far as what we could expect? I know that that's kind of a loaded question, but what do you
yeah, it really is. Well, it could only be within it. The experience is only going to be personal to each and every person, and it all depends on your own filter, your own being. It is what are you doing to expand? My biggest thing is like, okay, I want to expand. So you're giving so much different things, trials and tribulations and wisdom that you gain from. So I work with a lot with the wisdom ray. I mean, if you hear about the Ascended Masters, they have about 7 rays. And with me, one of the biggest ones that came in my field and even in meditation has been Kathumi, which I kind of had a laugh about the connection. My ex-husband had bought a book. When I was moving everything, I ended up with the book. So I read it. It was chakras and very Christian based, I felt at the time. And I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. So then I read it again. I was like, oh, I am understanding a little bit. So then I read it again. It was full-blown expansion. There's a lot of things. And I have that book, and it has little sticky notes everywhere where it's like, oh, my God, yes, this is making sense. Oh, my God, yes, this is making sense. So there's sometimes that material out there that you don't understand. But from time to time, even interactions, even like zoology, there's connections, there's things that are clicking in, and then it makes your expansion further be like, oh, this is resonating so much for me that you're able to move past into another level. And it's always doing the active work.
Yeah, this is cool. And I like what you said too, because about the personal thing, because there's so many different explanations. And sometimes I'm just like, I feel like there's a ping pong game going on in my head, from one side to the other. But I love what you said about the Mayans as an example. So that could, if it can happen with an entire tribe or civilization, which makes perfect sense. You guys have ascended as a group beyond what the rest of the world's doing, and we're going to move you to this higher dimension. You're going to ascend, basically. But the same could happen for an individual. It would make sense, like they talk about with what is it, Enoch? Just different, or whatever ones in the Bible that just didn't die and they just went up.
Well, isn't he the only one person that had ascended and became Metatron in the end?
I don't know. I know that he ascended without, yes, but I don't know who he became or whatever. That all that stuff to me gets kind of interesting too. Like, because like everyone else, I mean, I've had, different essences present themselves to me. Jesus was huge in the beginning 9 years ago. And I often think, what is that? Is that a group? Is that an energy complex? Is that the actual consciousness of the individual soul that just expanded and continued to expand in the ethers and took on a more and more prominent role because of the focus and attention that they created, and then was expanded based on the things that happened on the earth? I don't know. It's interesting. I've never had a Metatron experience. So many people have talked about that, and sometimes I wonder, like we all do sometimes, like, is something wrong with me?
No, I've had it. He's one of the main people that I work with. So to me, how it came to, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
But then again, I have a lot of different from my group that I work with. It is whoever is going to be working with whatever specific thing that comes in. Right. So if eventually when he gets towards something that he's good at, besides sacred knowledge, divine geometry and everything else, they're the ones that are going to be stepping in, because they're the ones that are matching your energy in order to calibrate that.
Right on. How I don't usually go into this kind of stuff, but if you're led to do what you're led to do. How do you tap into somebody? Like you said, you have pretty, and I know a lot of people come on here and they talk about they can do this and they can do that. And I'm not saying they can. I respect everybody's reality, but I don't know. How do you do that? What does that feel like? What is that like?
I think it's more of the focus and sensitivity of sending your energy and just reading the fields of who they are, what is going on, if anything else, is using your intuition.
Yeah.
Of what's being bounced back to you.
Yeah.
I will keep some of the stuff to myself and make a small note of those. If they're very prominent, spirit guide will be like, yep, you got to make something's there. And it pulls into it. It also it uses my body as a guidance for if it's energetic healing and it's something physical, for feminine aspects, or for feminine energy. If they're having an issue with something, I always get it as, I'm feeling it here. I get it through the body, and then I let them know, it's like, hey, what's going on? I'm having this energy thing happening in this area. I don't have an issue. What's going on? And they'll tell me, yeah, that's where the area I'm having an issue, and eventually validating what's coming through. But most of the time is I'm able to tap in, but I also use my body as well as my intuition and listening to my spirit guides of the information that's coming in.
Yeah, I've noticed that over like the last 9 years since I got my memory back, whatever you want to call it. Especially in the early years, there was a lot of psychics and mediums that came onto my path, which I guess I arranged it that way because for whatever reason, there were certain things that could only come through that way. It helped me to discern where ego was in tainting their their message or whatever, and a lot of things. It was very helpful. But one of the things that I noticed, even right up until in the last few weeks, the people will come on and either on the air or privately, they'll send me a note or they'll say something to me and they'll say, hey, this and this and this is going on. And it's always like, dude, that just happened like a month ago. Like it's almost like they're reading my past. But when you say reading the field, they're basically tuning in to what's going on with me. That's really what they're seeing. But I've just noticed that for me, it's never really been about anything happening like a prophecy. It's more been like, okay, this they're just seeing what just happened with me. I don't know. That's just been my experience. But I wanted to ask you. I don't know why I'm asking you this either. To be honest with you, I guess because you're going full blown galactic. So I've always wondered about this experience I had about when this happened to me 8.5 years ago, and like so many people, all these divine episodes were happening like every day, as the world's telling you you're crazy and all these other things were happening. So one night I was dancing in the club, and I used to go to this sanctuary. It was a park, and there was a parking lot, and then there was a soccer field in between the park and the parking lot. So I knew something was going to happen. It was an incredible night, and some incredible things happened I won't get into. But the thing that always, and I didn't know anything about Galactic. I didn't know anything about Galactic until I met Morgan, because she's like you, And so I start walking across this field. The wind was very stiff and very, it was probably, I don't know, 15 miles an hour. It was enough to where you had to like keep your balance. I mean, it was pretty brisk. So as I was walking, there was I could see in my lower peripheral, there was a circle of light, and I didn't like look down and go, oh my God, that's a circle of light. I just kind of noted it because I was already at this high level. I knew something was going to happen, even though I'd never experienced galactic and, whatever. So as I start to walk into this circle of light, the wind stopped. So I kept walking. It was about 15 feet. And the second I took my first step outside the circle, the wind started. So I backed up into the circle, the wind stopped. And then I heard this ringing, which I'm very familiar with now. There was no words, there was nothing. And so then I knelt in the middle of the circle, and there was a ringing, and then there was like, I guess third eye, I could see like these waves coming down. And I've often wondered about that. Was that a spaceship incident? Was I actually beamed up? Was I in a pod or, something? I've always wondered about that.
Did you lose time?
No. No. Well, I don't know, because it was 2:30 in the morning, 2:45 in the morning, and I was, probably a little lit. I wasn't like stumbling, drunk or anything, but I was in the perfect, frequency, I guess, for that to happen. And it was a lot of stuff led up to it. But what I do know is that I was kneeling for 4 minutes and 37 seconds. And don't ask me how I know that. But at 4 minutes and 37 seconds, I was told, you need to get up now and you need to keep walking, and some more stuff happened. But I've always wondered, because it seems galactic, like it was a dome. It was a dome. When I looked up, it was a geomantic dome. In fact, I was told that, and I went and looked it up, and there's a lot of stuff written about geomancy and geomantic domes in what is it, the Hermetic tablets, or the Hermetic teachings, something like that. But anyway, so there was all these lines. There was, like, I guess you would call them ley lines or meridian lines, and they were all lit up, just like a grid. But I always wondered about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, they don't talk about, I don't know about you, but I've always had experiences where there is the Arcturians, Palladians, and a lot of different galactic families also do travel with angelic beings, because sometimes it's easier. So I had a friend who's a little bit galactic. We're no longer friends, but one thing she did mention in the past is they'll go on this missions. That was part of her work. They'll go on these missions with the angelics on board and go visit planets and have experiences with people like me and you in other dimensions and connections. So to me, it also sounds like angelic as well as galactic. But giving you all these things, I guess it's also the metaphysics the connections. It's that knowledge that's being poured down to you.
Yeah, that's
That,
what
I
it
mean,
felt like. Yeah.
yeah, when you get that ringing ear, I mean, I get it all the time, but I don't understand. It kind of takes a little bit of the time to kind of digest the information.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, right away. Sometimes,
Thank you.
sometimes it could,
Thank you for
sometimes
saying
it could
that.
be.
Well, thank you for saying that, because again, I think I know we're all different. I know, like in my case, I know that the team, whatever, however that's set up, is most of the time, like 95% of the time, either, well, they're putting me in a place where my focus pretty much has to be right here. Like, I can't be out there. They're like, you need to be here. Don't worry about the ringing in your ears and the information coming in. You don't need to try to figure it out. You just need to focus on what you're doing and embody it, and try to stay in alignment and expand and all that stuff. But I see other people, and they're just like, wow, so and so just popped in and they gave me this, big long dissertation on, how to astral travel, or, directions on how to, make this metaphysical recipe so I can make this concoction. I mean, you know what I mean? It's, I guess everybody's just different. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's having that connection to yourself. The
Hmm.
more you work within yourself and your discernment, you realize more or less eventually where the information is coming from. How important is it to you to find out where
Hmm.
it's coming from, or is it really just trusting that it was given to you
Yeah.
at the moment that you needed for you to expand further? And
Yeah.
I've learned always trust yourself.
Yeah.
um it just recently happened to me where before the eclipse happened, um the energetic frequencies were so high. I was texting soul brothers like, oh my god, it just feels amazing, and it felt like portal energy. And out of nowhere, oh, this is the beginning where Sirius portal began.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, I was doing my run and I feel like I hit a wall, and it's like, go home, rest. I lost time. I have no idea what happened, but
Yeah.
eventually I was needed somewhere else to do other dimensional work elsewhere.
Yeah. Wow. That's trippy too. Somebody asked a question. Um, I had the name. Oh yeah, Allison from New York. Yeah. And thank you for the contribution, Allison, the other day. I think I told you already. So she has a question, and I wanted to expand on that a little bit, but I'll go ahead and go with her question first. She wants to know if you can discern what galactic family individuals are from. And then I would add on to that, because people talk about that a lot. And for me, and it just feels like I'm all of it. I don't know how to explain it. Now, there's a Syrian and an Alpha Centaurian and an Arcturian, vibe that comes in and has come in a lot. In fact, I had a Syrian aspect and an Alpha Centaurian aspect. Morgan was there. They all came in, like, 10, 12 of them came into the bedroom. They materialized. They were translucent. And two of them walked into my back, but I knew at the time it was okay. And then later on, they told me, oh, these were your aspects. They came in and merged with you. But is it, can you answer the question for her? Can you tell people where they come from? And two, is it something that's important for us to know where we come from? I mean, is the origination of our galactic lineage, is that important for us? I mean, I don't know.
With some people, sometimes I'm able to pick up a lot of the strong aspects. But if they're prominent and it needs to be known for them. But if I feel their starseed, I tell them, yeah, you're galactic. I can feel your essence. I can totally see that. It's more easier for me to be tapping into that energy and
Yeah.
work with that, because then I also know that they're easier and open about their experiences. And then later on do say, oh, well, I had this connection, this happened, and they keep that to themselves. But when I'm in order to expand, because they haven't told anybody anything regarding their experience, because they feel like they're crazy
Yeah.
if they told somebody. As far as does it really matter? I really don't think so. I mean, we're able to tap into those many aspects. I mean, we've lived so much in so many things. Our souls are eternal.
Yeah.
and we can tap into those essence no matter where we're at. And it's just mostly going to be the prominent ones that are most needed here now for us, or the ones that we're going to be able to tap in a lot more. So
Yeah.
those aspects with that energy of that wisdom and whatever that information in lifetime after lifetime, it'll be easier access for us. And a lot of people say sometimes it's because it's the most recent.
Yeah.
It could be
Yeah.
because
That's
we've
to me. Yeah. That makes sense to me. People will say, oh, I'm from the future. I'm not making fun of anybody, but I'm from the future and I'm up there running a spaceship down here watching. Yeah. And I always think, to me, the galactics are the past. That's not the future. It's like, everything's always upside down anyway in the universe. It's, but that to me is the way it works. Now you said something about the star seed. Okay. So I've seen people make this comment, and in the spirit of unity consciousness, we're obviously having to deal with all these points of separation, right? But one of the things I've seen people ask, they'll say, am I a star seed? And I think, wow, that's trippy. Now I've gotten some intel on a personal level that there were some souls that were born here. And I'm not saying that's gospel. I'm just saying it's my own thing. And that's the only thing I've ever seen. But is everybody a star seed, or are there newer souls?
I really do think that, I mean, if we take down to who created us and we look down towards Keepers of the Light, even Dolores Cannon, we're not here, and our makeup is not all just what is human. It's all bits and pieces of the cosmic soup.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we all are. I really truly believe, but I think the essence really is the soul.
Yeah.
The soul that lived so many different lives elsewhere, that's coming in, that's tapped in, and came in through a different portion in order to bring their own stuff into this energetic cosmic stuff that's happening right at this very moment. Those people that are being activated right now, that are being called and stepped forward, are the ones like, come on, let's get to it.
Yeah.
Same thing with Spirit telling me last Sunday, 2 Sundays ago, you got to get on. You got to get on.
They told you got to get on. Right on. Yeah, you just brought something up too that was I think important too. Oh my God, I can't remember now. Oh, it was a great question too. I hate when that happens. I was going to ask you a question about the soul, the galactics. Oh my God, I can't remember now. That's what happens when you're 58 and you're in the middle of a ascension. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it all happens to us. I mean, last time I was driving, I was checked out for maybe 2 minutes. This is before the whole virus thing happened. I completely lost time. I lost time. I did not realize it was 2 minutes, but it felt like an eternity when I came back. And I had to drive back home, and I was like, what happened? What happened?
I know what it is now. And I can relate to what you're saying. That happened to us several times on Kauai. When we lived in Kauai, we would drive, and it would be like a 25-minute drive, and it was like you were in a tunnel, and both of us experienced it at the same time. And then it would be like, God, how long is it going to take to get there? And then on the way back, it was like 4 minutes. Like, how the hell did we get here? But that's an interesting place. What I was going to ask you was, so there's a lot of, a lady wrote me today and she's like, have you written a book? And I'm like, no, but I've thought about it like 27 times. And every time I started, I never do it because something in me is telling me you don't need to do that. And my question is, do you think that we've gotten to a point where, because we started the show talking about anchoring, do you think we've gotten to a point now where if I receive something and I understand it in my head, that and whether I make a post or a video or a spirit walk or whatever, or talk about it openly or whatever, or not, that it's actually in the field? In other words, are we moving away from having to write stuff and present stuff? And, are we pulling this stuff in and is it becoming available to the point where that books and these old methods of getting information out there are no longer necessary?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest things that's happening even now. I mean, I normally don't post too much on Facebook, or I edit a lot of the stuff that I do because I don't feel like I need to.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're anchoring it ourselves, and then if you don't need to feel, you don't feel like you want to do something and put it out there. I mean, you open up Facebook and there's like somebody, Sandra Walters, posting
Saying the
exactly the
same
same
thing.
thing. Yeah, I
Morgan
mean,
has said that many times. She'll be like, she'll go through phases, but she'll say, then I like, why? What's the point? I open it up and somebody else wrote it, So yeah,
I only feel like when it's really needed, when I feel like the spirit guidance is like, hey, this is what you need to say,
yeah,
or this is the
yeah,
message that's coming through.
yeah,
That's when I will be like, okay, I'm gonna share it.
yeah,
But sometimes most of the stuff that happens, I keep it to myself and I anchored it within myself.
yeah,
I don't need to do anything else but be within it and sit with it,
yeah.
because you see it, somebody else is posting the same thing with Schumann
Well, I've
resonance,
noticed
people
it.
listening.
I noticed it, and it may not apply. There may be a little bit of a difference in there, but so like whenever this happened to me 9 years ago, they came in like Sology. They kept showing me Sology. It's going to be worldwide, and it's bigger than Elvis and the Beatles. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't even care. I'm like trying to get through all these traumas and all these divine episodes and beings and dark and light that are coming in every day, But but what happened was, so 3 or 4 years go by, and then they told me, because I had started Sology Group, and I just did it from my flip phone, and there was a few hundred people in it. So then I got off the streets, and I was told, go start a studio downstairs. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with a studio? I mean, like they gave me these directions. So eventually, what happened was they said, get on, get your phone and just turn it on and start talking. And that's what I would do. So like 400 videos, 9 months later, uh, something shifted. And so now what'll happen now is I only, the Sology was built on these spirit walks, and I would take the walks and I would do them. But I don't do them anymore. But every now and then, like every 6 weeks or 8 weeks, something will come in and say, go do it now. And it'll go off, and it usually has a pretty good reception. But I think this is what you were talking about, because it's like my whole body knows to do it. Like there's no question about it. It's almost like you can't schedule anything, you know, which is kind of a challenge with the show, but they seem to be cooperating with that. So I've
Well,
kept
they
you.
know that
Yeah.
they know that you need to be doing everything that
Hmm.
all the people that are coming on, it's
Hmm.
divinely orchestrated. The energy's lining up. When
Hmm.
it's needed, it will be out.
Yeah.
And when you need to tap and do your thing, and you're called to step away.
Yeah. I got to tell you something. I've kept you over, by the way. We got Candace Co in 16 minutes. Um,
Okay.
no, it's okay. I just want to tell you something, because, it's so interesting how I remember when I first, this happened 9 years ago, I'd say, well, they'd give me this piece of a puzzle, and I'd say, well, what the hell is that? And they'd say, well, you figure it out. We're going to give you the pieces, you put them together. But now the piece comes in, like this piece came in, I want to say 3 days ago. 3 or 4 days ago. I think it was on a show. I'm trying to remember. And the lady said something to me. Thank you. And people have said that on the show. They're like, thank you for what you're doing, and you and Morgan, and you just, and but something was different about the way she said it. And I thought, oh, and I think we were talking about self-worth, self-love, doubting ourselves. That's what it was. And I said, I still don't think it's, and I know it's my own deal, that it's not as big as it might be. And so, but something happened, something shifted. I felt tears coming up. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Like I went into freak out mode. So like I realized something today, now talking to you and listening to you and understanding who you are, and, you know, the full, birth of you, all the multidimensionality, how you're clued in the whole 9 yards. And the fact that you watch this show pretty much every show live means a lot to me. It's completing that message. It's telling me that there's substance here. And I just want to say thanks because I just got it. So, you know, I'd
Part of
love to.
being
Yeah.
a part of the frequency.
Mm-hmm.
When
Yeah.
we bring in that energy, and I think there's a lot of different people that always come in, if it's either on Facebook, Zoom, or YouTube.
Yeah.
You see that you feel the energy overall, and we really do appreciate that every single time. And I'm so happy that Morgan came in last time, and she really stood up. And when she did her other show with, I can't remember her name,
Oh,
but I was blown away
she's
that
freaking amazing, man. She's just,
exactly,
she's
exactly.
amazing.
So both of you
You should
doing the
have been here.
work.
You should have been here the other night when I don't know, like 15 goddesses came in the room, and I was like, "Holy crap!" It was amazing. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And it's time that that these feminine energies are stepping up, like yourself. It's the new way. It's the real deal. And that incident that I'm talking about that happened the other night, in that moment, I said this before in one of the other shows. I got up, and it was one of those things where your body, the whole, you just know you got to do it. And I got up on my knees, and she was laying down. I said, "Hey, I surrender in this moment. I surrender to you." And it was the feminine. It was the mother goddess, the Mary, Magdalene, Morgan. They're all the same, you know. And so I think it's important to support that, and that's what we're trying to do. I'd love to collaborate with you again. You're amazing, and I think people will gain a lot from being exposed to your energy and your message and your work. So I feel like I'm talking to my sister. So it's pretty easy. So yeah, if you yeah,
So
so
yeah, thank you.
yeah. And if you have any ideas with some of your friends and you want to do a little collaboration or even have them come on individually or anyone like that, just let me know.
Yeah, I would have to ask them and send that stuff their way. I mean, I have a amazing, beautiful soul brother who me and him knew instantly that we were connected, and in other lifetimes. And he's a shaman, so I'll have to ask.
Right on. Well, you let me know. We got Candace in 12 minutes. I'm going to go get some coffee. I'm not a good light worker. I don't drink tea. I love you so much. I really appreciate it. I don't know what else to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everyone.